This episode was sponsored by one of my previous guests, the amazing Demora Avarice. So make sure you go check out her episode as well as her links in the description below. And welcome back to the Huge Boob Corner. I am your host, Peter McLean, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been supporting the show. And if you want to keep supporting the show, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video. Now, today, my guest is an incredibly legendary adult performer, somebody who I think is one of the greatest Milf performers of all time. She's incredibly beautiful, incredibly busty. Will you please welcome Veronica Avluv?
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the very overwhelmingly, oh my gosh.
Oh, no, I know. I try to give a good intro to my guests.
Ooh.
Well, it's true though.
Legendary.
Well, I mean, you've been in the industry for a while, and I feel like the Milf genre was still kind of emerging.
It was,
as opposed to like now it's a firmly established
it's a whole
genre.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have Julia Ann and Lisa Ann to thank for that.
That late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah, because
really.
I remember being in the 90s looking at Julia Ann and Janine Lindenmuller and Blondage. I was a huge Blake Andrews fan. Huge. So like then when I came in, I was like, oh, Julia Ann's still here, and she even looks hotter than she did. Like, yeah. And I had no idea what I was walking into, really. So
yeah, no, but it's just it's cool though how that, because I mean I'm sure you go back to The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman, that kind of introduced the whole older woman seductress type character, because people say Stifler's mom from American Pie, but
I love Jennifer Coolidge.
Yeah.
Anything she's in, I'm all over. I have to make one correction. It's Andrew Blake. Sorry, my brain's a little bit dyslexic. And when I first came into the industry, I think it was within the year 2010, maybe, or it might have been the first half of 2009 before I actually took a break and then came into doing the Boy Girls with Brazzers, having a contract with them.
Yeah.
In 2010, I actually did The Graduate.
Oh, okay.
India Summers was the seductress, and I was the other guy's mom. I can't even remember the name of my character, but I worked with this crazy director, and I loved him so much. He was actually in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Really?
Yeah, he was insane. I wish I could remember his name. I bet you he's still around. We just immediately we saw each other, and we were like, oh, it's on like Donkey Kong. Yeah. And who else was on that? Herschel. Anyways, he's a great actor. And then Ron Jeremy was on the same.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of, and they were kind of that, from the 80s, 90s.
Yeah,
and
it was
kind
crazy
of transitioning.
time. I remember Ron and one of the other guys just constantly teasing me. They'd be like, oh, you want it. And I'd be like, I only like girls. Leave me alone. So my scene was with India Summers.
Okay.
It. Yeah. It was fun.
But from the very beginning, you were in that Milf category.
Yeah.
And how was that? I mean, was that something that when you were like, oh, this is cool, or like you understood, or what, did you have?
Okay. So the first time the phrase MILF was ever said to me, I was actually working in this 5-star restaurant that was owned by the drummer of Korn, in Huntington Beach. And there was this annoying guy that was also a waiter. And he was like, oh, you're such a MILF. And I was like, why are you talking to me about milk? Like, I had no idea what he was talking about. Yeah. And then later on, someone was like, and I was like, that is so insulting. Now, everyone who knows me from my Veronica phase of life, they'd be like, I was actually really offended. And, so when I got into it, I was still, the way my brain works, I was just like this crazy chick who wanted to do cool, fetishy stuff with chicks. And it didn't sink in until it started really sinking in. I think when I started shooting for Girlfriends Films a lot, because they loved me right off the bat, I started getting into these tete-a-tetes with the owner.
Okay.
About why? Because I am not a fan of anything that has anything to do with stepmom, mom. The only time it's hot is if I'm with a Latin lover and he's like, mommy.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I do not like it.
Okay, so that's something that was kind of a hard limit for you.
Well, I didn't really have much of a choice.
Okay.
Now I get to make my own rules.
Yeah.
But this is how I got into being so hardcore.
Okay, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to that too quick. But I mean, because so, you know, do you think that the whole idea that older women tend to enjoy sex more, do you think that that's a correct, way that people think, or is that something that you think the adult industry kind of accentuated for the sake of selling a product?
I have I have a small circle of friends, always have. But the girlfriends that I've had for a really long time, and maybe we all started at the strip club. I've got one who's 10 years my senior. I've got one who's very famous, who performs here on the strip with her own burlesque show. And she's like my age. So I'm going to remove it from the adult industry.
Okay.
And give you and the viewers out there a perspective from like a normal girl.
Yeah.
Okay. As normal as
Yeah. No. I know what you mean. Yeah.
As I think what happens is that unless the world has beaten you to a pulp, and even if it has, and you find that you get back up on your feet and you dust off the insults and you dust off the comparing yourself to other people, what happens is you get older and you start to kind of go, like, that doesn't really flippin' matter to me anymore, what other people think. And you know what? I know what I like, and now I'm going to speak up, and so like, if you want it, you're not going to be timid and shy about it. And you tend to become, I think most women, not all, but I think most women naturally, as you get older, if you survive that long, the longer you survive this world, the more alpha you become.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's even a cultural thing. I think that even, in dynamics in families or in cultures where the women tend to stay in the house, there's the older woman is the woman who's like in charge.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, and if she's not taking charge, the whole thing falls apart and the men have nothing to come home to eat, So I think it's just a natural progression for an older woman to be more like, I like this, or I want this, or I don't want this. And that does extend into sex.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I also heard, I think biologically, I don't know if it's women start to produce a little more testosterone as they get older too. And I think that might increase naturally their libido.
Listen, buddy, I'm way past that phase.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm 4 years past any production of any hormones.
Okay.
So this is something my mother told me, because I asked her before I went through the change in 2020. It was an amazing year.
Okay.
Anyways, I asked her, she's quite a bit older. I was like, Mom, what about sex? What happens? And she's not like really super like into what I do. She doesn't, it's just, but like we've always been able to have like an open mom to daughter discussion about at least these things. And she's like, it's not so much physical anymore as it is like a mental thing. It's not like you're driven by this urge. And that is very much the hormones. It really is. Because I can tell you the drop and going to nothing, like it's mental.
Okay.
If I were left alone and I had nothing else to do, if you gave me a piano or a vibrator, I'd probably be on the piano most of the time.
Okay.
But because, what I do, 1, 2, if you have an intimate partner, you want to have that. It's more up here. And my body knows what it's doing. I mean, obviously, I've done this for 15 years. And before that, I was, when my hormones were raging, I was a raging maniac too, as evidenced by the choices I made in my career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, because I was just curious, because I don't know in terms of, like, I don't know if there's again, with the physical change, how much.
I did hit a peak.
Yeah.
Before I started to head towards the end of, the egg supply.
Okay.
The the menstruation.
So
there was a point where I was like, for sure.
Well, I mean, is it more difficult now then to be aroused, or is it just like, it's just different now how it happens?
I'm not distracted by it.
Okay.
And I would say honestly, and I am older, so I'm just going to speak it because I feel like my generation, Generation X, is doing a lot of younger women favors out there because we're starting to talk about this. The one thing I would say that's other than the bodily changes is more like, I got to use some estrogen cream down there, or no matter what I do, it's like, ow. Yeah, like it changes. So just, as you get older, I just like the men sometimes need to supplement with testosterone. Yeah. Us women need to do a couple things. But I mean, I love being a sexual person. I'm just not driven mad by it. Do I have erotic fantasies still? Yes. Do I want intimacy still? Yes. Do I still have orgasms? Absolutely, multiples.
Okay.
I just wouldn't do something stupid.
Okay, so
in order to.
So in a way, it's nice because it's you've kept the good things about being sexual and kind of gotten rid of the potentially more reckless things.
Absolutely, and also it's given my brain more freedom to like explore other topics of creativity because I'm a very creative person. So I love it because now that I'm, working in the fashion that I am with my own platforms and owning my own content, I'm able to go, what am I going to do with my free time? I think I'm going to start a project. And I'm not over in the corner going,
yeah, you're not just, I can't think because, yeah, right, yeah. It can be, as far as I know, because when you're young, especially because men when we're teenagers and 20s, that's all we can't think about anything else.
Well, I used to be a guy's girl, all my life. Most of my friends had been guys, and then something kind of happened, and I was like, oh, most of my friends are girls now. So I know men very well, and I'm talking about before my foray into the industry. So I'm not. I love guys. I love their. The goofy humor, the fart jokes, I love guy humor, you're not going to see me watching Desperate Housewives. I will never, I still to this day, I'd rather watch Family Guy.
Okay.
Monty Python, Yeah, so I don't go for this drama crap. Okay. But guys, they're driven by it and they keep making it and making it and making it. And, if your nose is full, you're not going to be able to think until you blow it.
Yeah, true. That's a good analogy.
So girls, don't get so mad at the men that they biologically kind of can't help it. It's
something we have to deal with on a regular basis, and it doesn't stop. It'll slow down for us as we get older.
If you if you don't use it, you lose it. So a healthy man, to the end of your days, you could be making progeny.
Yes, we can. Just ask Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, who both sired
be
children in their 80s.
Multiply. Yes.
So, I wanted to go back though, because you were talking about stuff that you didn't like to do as in the MILF category. Were there scenes that you really enjoyed in terms of the scenarios that
I'll tell you what was fun.
Okay.
Because I do have that side to me. It would be the ones where it was like, oh, I'm the friend's hot mom. Because then it would remove the stupidity from me. And as long as there were a couple scenes like this guy, Jordy, nice guy, great guy, of age. I did do one scene with him and he wasn't my stepson or anything. It was he wrecked his bicycle because I was standing out on the sidewalk or something.
Yeah.
At the whole time, and he was great to work with, whatever. But the whole time I was just like, oh, this guy looks like he's
super young.
Super young. So most of the time, that was kind of an era where I was edging out. They started bringing in these super young looking guys.
I've noticed that. And that's off-putting to me.
Yeah, and and you're looking at the person and their talent and they're there to work and they're of age and they're just they can't help what niche they've been put into too. So the friend's hot mom. But when the guy would look like he was, old enough to
actually be, I know what you mean. And because it's interesting because with Brazzers, when they had guys like Johnny Sins and
love Johnny, Sins.
Charles Dara, I think that's
Johnny did my second scene.
Okay,
I love Johnny.
Yeah,
great
Kieran
guy.
Lee, those guys that kind of built Brazzers. Yeah. In the beginning. With their, and it's I don't know, maybe because I was younger, I didn't see them as looking that young because they were older than me.
Johnny Sins was always bald.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so it's the idea that And then when you started to notice that the men in the scene, I was like, man, they were just looking younger and younger. And
yeah, what are we feeding into with this crap?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it goes both ways. Like when you see the barely legal girls,
I don't like it.
The same thing.
I have a real actual. That's one where I would make enemies in this industry, and I don't really care because I've been around long enough.
Yeah.
I say we're actually making it normal, and I know what it leads to, and there's a family history, not with me directly, but like, no, draw the line there. That's just wrong. You're catering to and normalizing something that is illegal.
Yeah, is it taboo? Is it taboo and is it illegal?
Yeah, and we're not talking like taboo, like master and servant.
Yeah, something that's still legal and okay.
No, this is So
you're crossing a line.
I deplore it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's interesting that you were willing to take a stand for that even back then, because it sounds like
I got in a lot of trouble.
That's what I'm saying, because this, like, nowadays, again, you've got the freedom to make whatever content you want in however way you want to, and you don't even need companies anymore the way that you used to. I mean,
nope, they need us now.
That's what I'm saying. So I mean, you could be like, I don't know if you've seen those, like some of those models, Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips, the ones that are kind of competing for, like, the biggest gangbang.
The poor girl
type
had to
stuff. But I'm just saying, they don't shoot. I don't think they've shot with any companies. I think they just do their own thing. Now they want to do it their own way, but that they cut out the company is almost like a middleman now that you don't really need.
The companies are having to find. I was looking at something the other day that said the era of the P star is over. I think I was in probably the last generation that hopped in, or maybe there was one right after me, but now it's all about the influencers. So, who can do the most dances on TikTok? And it doesn't, like, there's one girl and I don't know her and I'm not going to mention her name, but I know, like, people in the industry that are, big directors or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, this girl is just so hot, like, oh my God, like someone drew her like she was poured out of a genie bottle. And they're like, yeah, but it's so fun. She's nice as anything, but like she just doesn't have the, she's just kind of like there's no like, it's just different. And I don't really watch porn.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, do you think that the industry used to have a sense, like there used to be a sense of glamour? There used to be a sense of,
I don't know. For me, I felt like I was, every time it was like ding, ding,
ding.
And here's Veronica in the corner. Yeah.
Well, because I think also the pool of talent was smaller. So you had like, because anybody can start an OnlyFans and anybody can be, and there are some people that really like those kind of girl next door, just kind of everyday looking people that are doing it. But, adult work always had that kind of more glammed up Hollywood style, more to it. Like I think you had to be a good performer to get hired by these companies. I mean, you could look good, but I feel like if you weren't a good performer, you wouldn't get hired again. There
were inner circles and then circles, so if you came in and you were just one of those girls that was like, you could do no wrong. You couldn't really do a script. You couldn't really play a role. But damn, flip her this way, flip her that way. She would be able to work consistently.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't be getting big acting jobs. And, but she would be able to, if she wanted to, and she could probably use that to promote her other kinds of work. The girls that were like, I always think of Bonnie Rotten. Now, I met Bonnie when she first came in, and we became really good friends for a while, and I actually taught her how to squirt.
Okay.
Because she asked me to. And, she and I, like, we are two different people, but we shared, and like Francesca Lay, there was like this group of us. I even think of Puma Sweet, who you should have on here if you haven't
I'd love to have her on if she
Puma's just like the goofiest, like she and I get together and we're like,
yeah.
But the minute that camera starts going, she's like, whoop-ha. And that's me too, like with my own version. And same with Bonnie Rotten, same with Francesca Lay. Like it would just be like, you almost kind of had to be a freaking badass. You had to have this. I do have an alter persona.
Yeah. Okay.
Like when all the makeup's off and I'm just hanging out at home, rolling around on the floor with the dog, or just being goofy. Like I'm completely different
Yeah, of
from
course.
Veronica. And I noticed that with these other girls too, that there's just like this.
There's a dichotomy there in terms of a personality.
Well, yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's almost like that ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
And in this corner, you've got, you know, like I'd be like, you're my best friend. And then it would be go time. And it'd be like, who's going to You know, and I don't even know if that happens anymore or what's happening.
Because
really.
I think that the way that it is now, it's almost, it kind of blurs those lines because you have, because you're not just making, say, movies anymore or even just or scenes because like you're doing all this kind of stuff where you're doing TikToks, you're doing stuff where you're just walking on the street being yourself.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, so it does kind of, and because there's more interaction, you have a lot of these models that are talking directly to fans.
Yeah.
So there, where when I've had other people on the show that, models that started like in the 80s, in the 90s, and it was completely separate there.
Oh my gosh.
You had fan clubs where you had P.O. boxes that mailed you fan mail. That's the only way you got it. And then the only time you met fans was when you went to conventions.
Conventions or the book signings. Yeah.
But other than that, like you were
feature
still
dancing.
Yeah, exactly. You were still pretty much removed. And so I think you were kind of put more on a pedestal back then. Whereas now it's like you have so much access.
Everyone wants every moment of your waking day.
But you were saying though how much you love the industry now because you get to do what you want to do.
Listen, I feel like life is always in just like homeostasis. Like there's a balance. Okay, so did I really enjoy and learn a lot and get to do some really crazy things in that phase of my career, the way that the business was working? Yes, but that also meant that I was working paycheck to paycheck, and I was also having sometimes to take those roles that I didn't get. It wasn't like they would say, oh, do you want to come work for us? And here's the script ahead of time. You sit down in the makeup chair and they give you the script. And
right before you do it.
At least, any of us that were in those types of films, the ones that could like India Summers was on a lot of movies with me where it was like, you got to be that person that's like, okay, now I can get this down while I'm doing my makeup. And I don't know who I'm going to be until I get there.
Yeah.
So there would be times where there were a few times I walked off. There were a few times, I told my agent, listen, I'm not working with anyone under 21 and 21's a stretch already. Do not give it anyone to me that's a first timer. I do not want to break someone into this industry. I just don't. I don't want that responsibility.
Yeah.
And like no stepmom. And
that really
that really, yes, that was the one side of it. Okay. But there were fun things about it. Yes. The thing I love about I call it the internet's girlfriend, is that realistically, I am a very private person. So it does take a lot out of me to give that much, but I can also go, look, I'm going to take a week off and I'm just going to do my thing, sit in my headphones, groove out, whatever, and not do anything and come back and then do like a big, work run and it's fine. And I own all my content. So now I can think about retiring instead of retiring on someone's couch.
True.
Yeah. And I can think about other things.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's great that it's given you that ability to do that.
I love it. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
So do you think that there will be kind of an end date, or is it just more like you're just going to see how it goes and play it by ear?
Well, look, I don't necessarily, I'm definitely getting the plastic surgeries as they come up. Okay. I don't want to look super fake, but I knew this a long time ago that I didn't want to grow old gracefully, but I kind of, there's going to be a point where I'm going to be like,
it's done.
Camera's off of me. I really have other interests, but it's still all in the creative film field, photography, fine art, music. Music is like my first language. Okay. So I definitely, I'll always be grateful when the time comes. But listen, I'm 52 and I'm just now going, holy cow, I can do what I want. I got all these ideas. When I get together with other girls to collaborate, I'm almost 99% of the time, I'm the one who comes up with the ideas. Sometimes I actually outfit the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Nice.
mean, I've got this kind of brain where it's like, I don't even know if I need to be in front of the camera.
You might not need to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's been fun, but no, there's no end date in sight as long as I can keep up.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
and there's nobody at this point. I don't think there's anybody pressuring you. It's all on you to do
Exactly.
it when you want to do it.
I mean, the people that are pressuring that I see once in a while in a social media comment, they get muted.
Yeah, and that's simple enough.
Exactly. I love it.
But since you don't have to rely on managers, agents, producers,
No, I have
directors,
to. But you have to be a boss.
Yeah,
you have to be like, nope.
You're a business owner now.
Yeah.
It's not just a performer anymore.
It's a completely different world with a creative brain too. So it is a little bit of a challenge.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and so we'll let's get in now to the fact that you were you one of the only MILF performers that did get into harder content?
Okay. I think because I have this like nose down kind of thing that I do where I'm like, I'm not a team sport, although I appreciate a team.
Yeah.
But like skateboarding or like I never got into actually surfing, but I love surfing, like that kind of stuff. So I was just like, if you guys are telling me that I have to be somebody's stepmom, you guys can all go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go over to Europe and I'm going to show you what a woman my age can do. And so I started contacting like legal.
Yeah.
Like I was like, bring it on. Bring it on. I want to show them that this can be done. And it was more of just like, I don't know, I'm a Sagittarius. If you tell me I can't do something or that I have to be this, I'm like, middle fingers up.
Well, I feel like though you were very unique though, because I don't think a lot of other performers were doing this stuff.
I didn't see it happening.
Yeah.
Not with the American girls.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like in my mind, it was like, where no MILF has gone before kind of thing.
Now, Siren DeMare, she would go over there.
Yeah.
We never worked together. I love her to death. But we never actually crossed paths on her. Maybe something will be forthcoming. But that, I don't know if I was actually in the forefront of it. I kind of feel like if I wasn't the first, I was one of the first.
Well, because I just think though that like back, because there's always a progression with companies where you do, you start with your standard boy girl, and then you update, you go to.
That wasn't me.
I'm just saying, and then they'll go up steps, anal,
like
all this
follow
different
the
stuff.
Formula, which is actually brilliant.
Yeah, no, it works from a marketing
standpoint. Didn't follow that. But I was like, no, I want to do this, and so if I was,
Well, and that stuff didn't like. That kind of harder stuff really didn't like scare you. It was just kind of like
I wanted to do it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Was it just?
I used to jump into mosh pits. So I mean, now my body's different. So I am a little more tender. But I have that like
when you had more hormones. Was that something that drove
I was
that?
reckless sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I
can't,
and I mean, I know that maybe some of the people might be a little disappointed if we don't get into the nitty gritty, but I also want to keep. This
we want
somewhat,
to keep this
somewhat YouTube friendly in certain ways.
Me too.
But so trying to keep it a little more tasteful, I guess.
Yes.
In that way. But that's the thing is because
pinkies up.
Yeah, right. Well, because there's the because the only American company I can think of that really kind of delves into more of that kind of stuff would be kink.com.
I love that's my favorite. That was my favorite company to work for. I love Peter Ackworth. Hung out not with him in a party sense or whatever, but like I've hung out, sat next to him at the little bar across the street and had conversations with him. I was a lifestyler before I got into the industry, so kink was just naturally like it felt like home to me. And I loved the makeup room where there were like trans girls and gay guys and all these people coming in and out. And it was so egalitarian, it was just so like, I was like, can I just live in a world like this where everyone is just like loving and accepting? Like it was such a unique environment. And they did what they did really well.
Yeah. Okay. So what, was shooting for them, say, a much different experience than, say, with a company like Brazzers or Naughty America or one of those?
Well, Naughty America, definitely. I kind of phased out of that because they were so oriented. I mean, I worked a lot for them in the beginning when I was solo and girl only. But then I kind of phased that out. Brazzers was always a great experience for me. They, kind of utilized, they got me coming out of the gate. Karen Lee actually recruited me,
That's okay.
to sign for my first 5 boy-girl scenes. And then I was like, okay, now, with the A scenes, I was like, okay, 2 A and then 3 GBs.
Yeah.
DPG, the whole thing. They were like, whoa, all right, Veronica. So I was a favorite of theirs for a little while until I wasn't.
Okay.
But so I had Brazzers experiences are very Brazzers experiences. It's very scripted. It's going to be a long day. It's not necessarily gonzo, but you are going to work.
Yeah.
Or what you're getting, but it's good for your career. Naughty America was kind of formulaic. And then I would say Evil Angel probably would be, there's several directors there. Evil Angel and Jules Jordan were the ones where, I got to get that freaky side in
I was going to say they're kind of a bridge because they kind of have that, they bridge the gap between more mainstream and then more heavier fetish type stuff.
Shooting for Chris Streams, that was always a good day because you knew you were going to look great. To me, he's the best. He's the best in the industry. And I know him really, really, really well. And then, who's the guy? Adriano. Love that guy.
Okay.
I've had some great conversations. You get in and he's kind of like what I was describing, Puma. And he's kind of like this, really you're like, oh, he's wearing his Mickey Mouse t-shirt and his sweatpants. And you don't even if you didn't know he had money, you wouldn't know. Yeah. And he's talking about animals and just super, super kind of got the tism going on.
Yeah.
And then the scene, and you're like, oh my God. And you always had, all the girls always love him, as far as I know. And then afterwards, when it's over, it's back to okay, you're going to have this really cool, geeky conversation.
Yeah, nice.
Evil Angel, Kink was my favorite. And
I was going to ask, were those scenes your the harder scenes, were those usually some of your most popular stuff that you did?
Well, I would say, okay, so with Brazzers, I did, and I know we're talking about Kink, but I have to go back. So with Brazzers, they ended up allowing me a scene where I wrote the scene from beginning to end, and I ended up pulling Bonnie Rotten in on that, and that was a dinner party, GB, DP, all of that stuff, and then with Kink, they let me do that. There was one called Kitten in a Cage, and that was my idea, and that one was really popular. And then the Machines, the guys were competing for new director of the machine site, and the guy who built the machines chose me, and I ended up breaking a machine.
Really?
That one's a really popular one. I still see that. I haven't looked in a while, but it has been the header on the machine site.
Okay, for a long time.
For a long time. May not be there now. It's been a while though. I used to track what my popularity was and my ratings and all that. And it's not that, it'd be interesting to see, but it's kind of how many times are you going to look at it after a while?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
So, I just don't know because I don't know if you still have fans that say, "Oh, I love this scene of yours from this time or from this site," and it's gets kind of still gets responses. From it.
I do get a lot. It's just there's so many of them. There's so many genres. How many different flavors for your fare?
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now again because with how niche you can actually get. You can get niche beneath niche. It's pretty crazy how specific you can get now with the content that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of times what ends up happening is with the really niche-y stuff, that ends up being a custom.
Yeah.
Because, some people just I'm not going to go all day long and do this great big production and do all the work that I do that nobody really knows about, as a makeup artist, as someone who's been an assistant to a lead hairstylist on celebrity shoots, and having been, married to a pro photographer, retoucher, like all these things where like I worked behind the camera at Mainstream. So my brain's like, do we need a scrim for that? Do we need, like, I'm doing all this stuff, but I don't have all the exact technical expertise. So it can take me sometimes a whole week to figure out how I'm going to do something that I'm going to release to everyone.
Yeah.
But for someone who's like, armpits, I'm like, just get accustomed because I'm not going to do all that.
Well, I was going to say, because do you still do some of that, or have you kind of retired from the harder stuff that you used to do?
It's just that I'm not really into working with the dudes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I got my machines and unfortunately OF doesn't allow
certain things. Okay.
But I can do that for myself. So
well, there's other platforms like Loyal Fans and Fansly that might be a little more accepting.
I'm working towards that. That's a whole other arena though, because production, it's turning out, I'm discovering as I'm going along that when I am collabing, it's kind of gotten around like, Veronica is probably going to be good for the ideas. And then I'll be like, how do we, like, I figured out this shoot that I'm going to be doing with Ava Devine. I don't want to need too much out of the bag.
Yeah.
But she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to, and I'm like, we're going to need a scrim and we're going to need a pool and we're going to like a blow-up pool. And like, we're going to need, so I'm talking to the photographer. I'm like, dude, he's like at least a 10 by 10 scrim, right? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just trust me. So I would love to get into the position to where, I'm actually working in that way, although I don't know how that's going to work with the way companies are now. So doing my own production, but not necessarily being in front of the camera because, I miss Andrew Blake. I miss that look that like you're watching, is this Vogue or is this porn?
Yeah. Well, and that's something that because I know that, and I was going to segue here, even though there's more that we can talk about, but only have an hour. I
told you I could talk.
I know. Well, I mean, the nice thing is, we can have you back and go into more detail with certain things. Yeah, right. But the fact that that you are so that you have a lot of artistic interest and background, and the idea that do you think that the adult industry has become more has it become more artistic, less artistic, or different?
Listen, now people are their own creators. I think there are a lot of people out there that are, going to blossom in this environment, and everyone brings their own unique flavor to the table, so to speak. I have a good friend, Olivia Wood, who is just this insane musician. She's also she's a star on the TS side, and like the stuff she can freaking do, I'm like blown away. And what she thinks of and what she creates is completely different from what's inside my brain. So I do believe that for those of us that are genuinely creative, and with that, the internet, like if you're like, I can dream it, let me figure out how I can do it. Now you can go look and research.
Yeah.
It's a boon for a lot of people. Yeah. It just depends on what you want to do with it.
Well, because like I had a recent guest on, a couple months ago. Her name was Karina Kova. She's from Canada, and she's mainly just done solo stuff for the time being. But she described the process of how like some of the customs that she gets are these very elaborate productions that she does, and she'll spend like a week to do them, to actually do like the pre-production, to get the wardrobe and do the script and do all this stuff, and it's just. And some people are willing to put in that much work into one type of, scene. And because I know though that like when you looked at old porn from like the 80s that was shot on like video compared to like movies at the time that were shot on 35 millimeter film, there was a clear difference of quality. And even before that, when porn was shot on like 8 millimeter.
That's why I'm saying Andrew Blake, hands down. Yeah. And Ken Marcus, that era of like, and I also, it's the fetishy, it's the like, when I'm not done up, dressed up, my style of intimacy is like so different. Even if everything gets destroyed by the end of it, when I walk in and I'm like, pow, I have a different mentality internally towards what's going to happen. There's a phrase I like to say. I've used this since before the industry.
Mhm.
I'm like a drag queen without a penis.
Okay.
Because that makeup, that whole process, like it puts on a different kind of attitude.
Yeah.
When I'm barefoot and no makeup on, like I feel like a different person. I approach that kind of stuff in a different way. As far as like the customs, like what you're describing, the girls that are really, really solo girls that can pull it off, that's a different kind of girl. That's like a girl that could probably be a model, but maybe isn't tall enough or something like that. That I wonder, because I don't live in that world, if it's one of those things where you're going to put in a week's worth of production to a custom because you're actually charging.
Yeah.
Because no one has access to you. The less you give, the more you get.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so, because, but like, do you have a creative process when you're thinking up scenes or when you're thinking up different things? Like, do you have a...
Okay. Good question. I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
I go to this Kraftwerk concert the other night. It's my second time seeing Kraftwerk. Okay. They're phenomenal. They were like the original
German
digital
electric.
Yes. Last time I went, I sat next to Rick Rubens. I wasn't with him, but I was in LA. I was with a friend who's in the music industry. And I'm like sitting, this bearded guy sits down next to me. And I'm like, it's Rick Rubens. So I went to see Kraftwerk again the other night. It was so good. And I'm watching like what's going on behind them on the screen and this Metropolis style, I love old movies too. Thing comes up with the antenna with the circles. And I'm like, oh man, I want to do this black and white thing. Like I got to figure. So there's this like, if all I do is sit in my house and look at the computer and think about what everybody else wants instead of getting out and feeding my creative hunger, then I'm not going to have any inspiration.
Well, I was going to say, because other art...
I have to get away from the work.
And other art can inspire, whether it's music. I mean, I think you can be inspired by architecture. You can be inspired by so many different things.
I love Art Nouveau. Yeah, but you got to feel like it dies. The fire inside me dies if I'm separated from going and seeing art, feeling it, hearing it. Like, and it'll frequently happen with me, especially with music. Like with this one, I've been every night since then, like hearing the music in my head in my dreams and like seeing different things. And then I wake up and I'm like, I wonder how I'm gonna.
Yeah.
And
it's fascinating how when you're creative minded, that's you can pick from stuff like that. I mean, have you ever seen like just a painting that just got the creative juices flowing?
Like I love all of that Art Nouveau, Alphonse Mucha, the girls with the flowing hair and the flowers. And, that is the inspiration for all of the Lord of the Rings, Elven.
Yeah.
When I look at art, when I hear it, movies, poetry, like those different things spark this fire inside of me. Yeah. So one thing I do also love about this is that I'm actually able to like take time to go do those things.
Yeah.
And then maybe it'll take me some time to gather the equipment, but now I can at least afford to save up for the equipment because this stuff it costs money to, even if you're a painter, you need to be able to get the supplies.
Yeah. And I think that to be like, because some of the greatest, say, film directors started out as, theater directors or artists that did paintings and stuff like that. So they took the art, their art background in one thing and then applied it to...
It's a journey.
Yeah. So, and I feel like there's nothing that can say that adult content can't be artistic. I mean, there's been erotica, which is usually a more artistic, sensual, romantic type of content, which I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that kind, like erotica?
Well, okay. So in the erotica vein, like I love Irving Klaw, and I know that's towards the fetishy side. I love all of the old pinups. I used to have a business doing nothing, maybe sometimes nudity, but like hair and makeup. And then my late husband was a photographer and a master retoucher. So we had a business where we were doing pinup boudoir out of the house. And we got written up in a magazine in Orange County. I definitely, unease. I don't know if I got that pronunciation correct. I like even looking at like some of the old vintage, like, the ladies with the hair down to the floor and their little stockings rolled down to the knee and the big bush. Like to me, it's interesting. And then I'm a big fan of, the Bunny Yeager stuff, the Betty Page stuff, all the real kitschy stuff, the burlesque stuff, the tying girls up and rolling around and spanking and hair pulling and stuff. I mean, I consider that erotica.
Well,
then there's some beautiful stuff out there too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm wondering if there's still a space for that because I mean, sometimes people are just so consumed with wanting, like penetration and that kind of stuff that the sensual elements kind of get lost potentially, and maybe they're not as.
I don't think the two cross over. I think when someone needs to scratch that itch and relieve that burden so that they can focus on other things, that's not necessarily the same as like the arousal and appreciation of an image of like beauty and eroticism that's not showing everything. And I actually, now that I think about it, think that penetration could be shown. In my mind, I'm thinking of like a still picture in an erotic way. Now, what is closer to that I'm recalling is the old magazines where, like, I've got a friend who's completely out now, but she's a big influencer. But she was back in the day where she was in the magazines and it was, you weren't, that's still spread, but it was so glossy and so beautiful and it never looks like that when it's in motion.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I was going to say, what art forms? I think it sounded like music's your favorite, or do you have
my
other?
Favorite.
Okay.
Music's my favorite. Right. I mean, listen, if I have to just become a philanthropist and just like, have a studio where people come and I just want to be surrounded by music. I have such an ear for music that like. Everyone who knows me really well, and not too many people do because my circle is always small.
Yeah.
If I'm in the car with them and a song comes on that pains me, they'll be like Chris Stream said it to me one time. He's like, I've never seen anyone visibly go into such physical pain when they don't like the sound. And I can't help it. And it does run in my family. We're a little weird, but everyone's musicians. And, music's my favorite. So I'm one of those people that's like, I can hear it, but maybe I'm not good enough to play it. Okay. But I do love to play with instruments, and I intend on filling my house with lots of instruments. And a harp too.
Nice.
But visual, I think, would probably be where I'm actually the best.
Okay. So like photography or...
I'm still learning more about it. I've been in front of it and behind it as the makeup artist, and now I want to learn how to do it myself because I have visions in my head.
And I'm wondering, do you say old film style, with a dark room where you're
love
actually
film
developing?
Noir. Yeah, and I used to have this book by about George Harrell, who did all of the silver screen. You would recognize the shots of Veronica Lake and with the hard lighting and everything. So
a lot of contrast.
Yeah,
and
I
stuff,
love
which is
black and white.
Gorgeous,
I love black and white.
Well, you look at somebody like Ansel Adams. We used to see his prints, everywhere. But those are some amazing photographs.
Yeah, they are.
And so, and I know we could obviously keep talking about this for a while, but no, it's fine. I'd love to. I just, I like to finish up with the boobs because that's that's the nature of the show. So, so I wanted to ask, when did you get, because you have implants, correct?
Yes, I was always busty though.
Okay, so
my nickname in 7th grade was LT and don't squeeze the Charmin. LT, large tits, large tits.
Okay, wow, nice.
Yeah, they're refills though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how big are they?
I believe they're 34 double D.
Okay, and CC count or do you not?
Don't even remember.
Don't know?
I mean, they actually probably should be replaced. They're a little wonky, but I just don't even want to go under the knife.
Really?
Not for that. Not right now. They're still they're this
good.
One's a little higher, and so be it. Everyone who knows me knows.
Yeah.
But for now, I just like there's no scars or anything.
Yeah, and that's
they were
nice.
the gummy bears, right? I was in a case study, so like I got the original gummy bears, and this one's like perfect. So.
Okay, and when did you get them?
2006, I believe. So I'm way overdue.
No, I'm just saying. But they're almost 20 years old, so it's like they're still pretty good, right?
Yeah, and the thing is you can't deflate them and roll them and take them out.
Yeah,
you would have to cut me open and pull them out, and I'm like,
yeah. And are they saline or silicone?
They're gummy bear silicone, so they're gummy bear texture. If you were to cut the shell, it can't go anywhere because it's gummy bear.
Okay.
Silicone.
All right. And like what? And so when you got them originally, what was it that? Because you weren't in the industry yet, so what was it that
it was a refill?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a refill. I had empty shopping bags, as Dr. Gowan told me. He did a friend of mine. He was very famous, and when the time came, and I was like crying over because I was originally big. So when they deflated from regular stuff that young women, it was like, I was just so unhappy. I was so unhappy, and I wouldn't even take my bra off for sex because I felt like I was like, I had teats, and so they just got refilled.
And then, and when you saw them, like after they were refilled, was it just a great feeling?
I was like, oh my gosh, finally they're back. Yeah, and I was so thrilled. And I just shouldn't have started jogging. That's when this one started.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they were perfect. And the guy who did it was a reconstructive hand surgeon.
Okay.
So there's like no scar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how close in size were they after the refill from what you originally were? Were they pretty close, or were they still like a little bigger?
No. I mean, he said, I can kind of give you an approximate. Do you want to go slightly less or slightly bigger? And I said, look, just fill them up. So I knew I was going to be a D because by the time I hit 8th grade, I was a D, but an implant D and a real mammary gland D, they are two different kinds of shapes.
Yes.
And another thing I love is you don't have to wear a bra. I hate bras. And they're actually bad for women. They found out. Yeah, they're proving that because you're cutting off the lymph flow here, that a lot of women, that they're linking it to breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I can just hop around with these things. Don't need a bra. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about that. And also because...
they look good in a bikini.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. That's.
Yeah. Babies love me.
Yeah.
Babies are always like,
yeah. Right.
And I love babies.
More hunger maybe on that end.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a primal instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say your favorite thing about having, huge boobs have been?
I think they've just always been a part of me. Look, I was a gym rat back in the day, and when they deflated, I still had like 6-pack abs, like a better body than I do now. But it was such a part of my identity because that was part of my womanhood. And when they came back, I just felt comfortable in my body. I'm not out and about like this. I'm here like this for you. But like when I go out, I cover up. If I'm at the beach, I wear a cute bikini. Jogging has always been kind of an issue. Yeah. Because but I just like them. They're fun bags.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They're called fun for a reason.
Yeah, they are.
The most fun body part in my mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that because, now we live in the day of the butt. And,
part of me feels like that might be a phase, but
it always everything cycles.
So, but the thing about boob fans is that we stay boob fans. Yeah. Like I've been a boob fan for over 25 years now, and it's just like you never get tired of them. You never stop appreciating them.
I feel very womanly. They make me feel womanly.
Yeah, would you say that from a fan standpoint, they're your most popular body part with fans? Maybe. Yeah,
I think there's another one that I'm sitting on. There might be, but I, I definitely get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for that.
Well, and because and the size you're at now, so you never had the desire to want to go bigger than you are now.
No, I got pushed a few times by people, but as I told you earlier, if you push me, it ain't gonna happen. Plus, I was just like, why? That's such a big, it's a big surgery to do. And I've seen girls, and that's their own bodies, and like different things happen with different people. But I was in the strip club industry from 17 to 24. I saw girls go so big that they would just fall out.
Yeah.
You know, and like, dude, if it ain't broke, why am I going to fix it? Plus, I like the jiggly, like, I love it. The nipples aren't all the way up to here, you know, but they're like, I don't know.
Well, because like your like how big? I don't know how big Pumas are, but I mean, I think hers are a little bigger.
Hers are fantastic. Yeah, but she's this tall Finnish girl.
Yeah, I know. And
you know, hers are like the size of my freaking you know frying pan for bacon. Like, yeah, but they suit her.
Well, and that's what I'm saying though. That's because it's interesting when I have different people on who. Some they want to keep going bigger, and they just for them going bigger is what they want. Yeah. Whereas others, like you, where you're at a great size that you love, and you're good with it.
I absolutely am. But I love that people can do whatever it's your body, your choice.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I get the whole bimbo fetish and all of that stuff. Like, I'm not saying getting bigger and bigger boobs is bimbo necessarily, but I appreciate the fact that you can do what you want.
Yeah.
It's your body.
Well, and I think also like huge boobs and MILFs have always kind of really, I feel like, gone together.
Yeah.
Because, I remember when Brazzers first started in like 2004, I think, or 2004 or 5. And, my friend's hot mom site was like, it was like every model had, really big boobs.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until like every now and then, like you said, India Summer, where she'd be on it as with smaller boobs, but it seemed like MILFs and huge boobs always kind of go.
Yeah. I think India just had that magical something. I mean, she won MILF of the year for 7 years in a row or something. She's a great actress. And I loved working with her back in the day when I got to work. We were paired a lot together. She was great. But I do wonder if I had come in when I had come in and I had the body of now, with the like little waist and the booty, but no bust, I might not be sitting here no matter what kind of crazy energy I've got. I
mean, do you think that, I think that boobs have a certain, strong power over people. Like,
when I was a makeup artist and I was working in malls as like a freelance, for, different makeup lines, I would travel and do like the shows, so, if I wore something that showed a little cleavage, I would always make more sales that day. And I'm talking about, I'm dealing with women.
Yeah.
So I think it's a subconscious thing.
Something.
Yeah.
Everybody's drawn to them.
And the babies, they love it.
Yes. But like, I've said, everybody, men, women, gay, straight, no matter what.
The gay men love boobies. I've been felt up more by gay men over the years, especially in the 90s when I was a club kid, than, which is, it's fine when it's your gay friend. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's one thing. It's one thing when it's somebody that you're not.
I love my gays.
Yeah. You're not, afraid of, or you're not worried about.
Not like, oh my God.
Yeah. This is, you're not, but, do you like huge boobs on other women? I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to say that that's what you prefer, but do you like huge boobs too?
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, they're, I notice them. I notice beautiful women. I notice women when they're enjoying themselves, or they've taken an effort to feel good, or they're just naturally just, I mean, gosh, if a girl's running down the beach and she's like Bo Derek and 10, or bigger, like, yeah, I'm going to notice that for sure.
Okay. I just, because sometimes people think I'm trying to think like that's what a preference it'd be. But, I know that you can like, I think there are women that don't have huge boobs that are gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Me too.
I'm not so, narrow-sighted that way.
Yeah. It's one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something you do like. I think with women, what I notice first is the smile on their face.
Okay.
And their energy.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And eyes can be a really, really strong thing too.
I love energy, and I love women. That's I work with them.
Yeah.
I love a happy girl, a girl with good vibes, man.
Yeah.
I'm all blah.
It's also it's really, really important.
Yeah.
And I mean, did you ever go through phases where you would show them off a lot? Like if you went to, like the beach, or you went to like, an event or something, you might try to.
I'm a beach bunny. I'm an original California girl, even though I'm from Texas.
Okay.
And I spent the 90s living in Huntington Beach. I've always, wherever I've gone, I've tried to be by the water. Since I lived here. I have to have at least a pool.
Yeah.
But so I was always like, I'm a girl from the 90s. Pamela Anderson, who's amazing from beginning to end, was like our role model, I was like on the beach every day in Huntington. And I had my little triangle tops and not necessarily a thong all the time, but like, the little Brazilian. And I was always like really, really active, rollerblading. And like, so, well, that was what I wore more than clothes.
Yeah.
I was a beach babe.
Well, I was going to say, do you remember like when MTV had their spring breaks in like Florida and Cancun and
that was
Jamaica?
Yes, I do remember that. And I do remember what's his name, Pauly Shore, the Red Onion. I met him one time. He was kind of a jerk. Oh. That was back in the 90s. My favorite era of MTV was like Flock of Seagulls. Yeah. When it was music videos. So I didn't sit around and watch that, but I do remember that.
Well, it's just because, like, for instance, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, what happened to wet t-shirt contest? I don't know if they still happen anymore.
I won a huge one in Texas one time.
Really? Yeah. Well, because I almost feel like if whoever has the biggest, if whoever had the biggest boobs, I feel like would always win a wet t-shirt contest.
Yeah.
It just seemed like kind of a no-brainer.
Boobs were the thing. If you had an ass. That was a no-no in the 90s.
Yeah, I know. It's
your leg
crazy.
Was supposed to go straight up and not have maybe just a little bit of a line from the thigh to, you know what I mean? You remember, and you'd have to have the dent here and be like, Carmen Electra, and Pamela Anderson. That was the body. And then, woof. I mean, I love a booty though.
No.
I
they're
see
great.
the appeal.
I think that boobs just they stay universal. I feel like because boobs attract attention in a way that butts can, but I feel like cleavage, because natural.
You're sitting across the table from me. You cannot see my bum.
No, and that's the thing.
It's my eyes, my face, and my.
They're there. It's like to see them. It's you're just naturally drawn. Your eyes are naturally drawn.
Yeah, and it's also a sign of fertility. It's a sign of sustenance.
Well, that's another, because you start by feeding on, because you feed on them in the beginning.
It's a very, I think it clicks something off in the human brain that's just like an instinct.
Like, really. I want them.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I want to be close to them, or I want to, do whatever. So
I love Angela White's boobs when she runs. Yeah. She is the queen.
She's incredible. Yeah, she's incredible.
Yes.
So she's
she's like Angela, call me.
Yeah. And she seems like she's such a sweet, nice person and everything.
I want to work with her. I've been around her a couple times and she is just
I'm sure you will.
She's really into like what she's doing too. She's genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Veronica, we have come to the end.
Oh,
but no. I know. But I hope you had a good time.
I definitely did.
And I hope you want to come back.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. I can't wait to have you back.
Such an honor to be asked on.
Thank you so much. And to all of you out there in Huge Boob Land, we will see you next time. Bye.
Meep, meep.